Today, I would like to introduce to you a very special person for this mission moment, Riley Church. What a proper last name for this place. Yeah. Riley has volunteered at Open Door for over 2.5 years, starting with preparing lunch bags, then working as an outside coordinator, and then now as a fig leaf clothing coordinator. It is well known among Open Door leaders and volunteers that Riley's big friendly smile and vibrant personality and kindness always brightens up our Saturday mornings. Riley is from here, Austin, and just graduated this past May with 2 bachelor's degrees in Plan 2 honors and in radio, television, film with a certificate in archive and museum studies. What an overachiever, right? Now, please welcome Riley Church.
Thank you, Pastor Earl, for inviting me to speak today. As he said, my name is Riley Church, and while we've been talking about college ministries, I still feel like a college student. This is my first week of not going back to school in 17 years. But after 4 years of schooling at UT and my whole life in Austin, what I'm proudest of is my involvement right here at UUMC's Open Door Ministry. I would hope that almost everyone in this room knows what Open Door is and contributes to it in some way. But if you're not familiar, every Saturday, this courtyard of this church is opened up to anyone who's in need of a hot meal, clothing, toiletries, coffee, books, even a conversation. I first found Open Door during COVID when it was still taking place out in the parking lot. It was, not a great time for anyone, but especially as a college student who had no in-person classes and was cooped up in a dorm where it was just me and my roommate and the rest of the whole floor was deserted. I was feeling very useless, lonely, and just really tired of the everyday life I was living. I had been looking for somewhere new to volunteer, as my mom, who's here, was instilled in me from a young age that there is no serotonin quite like helping someone else. Open Door intrigued me because of the directness of its impact. That first Saturday, my roommate, who's also here, shout out Grace, and we woke up at the crack of dawn, very unheard of for college students, walked a few blocks over and packed 180 paper lunch bags. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. I've grown up in Austin my whole life, and at some point, the huge homeless crisis here had caused these people to become part of the landscape to myself. It wasn't that I wasn't thinking about them or hoping that their situations had changed, but I accepted that their situations were beyond my reach as an individual. Open Door taught me that when we come together as a community, even small actions, when done with respect and empathy, can contribute to meaningful change. As my roommate Grace and I made the rounds as outdoor volunteers, we began building rapport with patrons from all walks of life. Like many people in this room, I have never worried about where I was going to sleep the next night, when my next meal would be, or even small things about when I was going to have running water to brush my teeth. These were never concerns that crossed my mind, but as I talked more and more with the patrons, I realized how many of them had backgrounds similar to mine. I met several people who majored in the same weird Plan 2 major at UT as me, who had the same philosophy professor 30 years ago, he should have retired, who had lived in the same dorm and had grown up on similar streets as me. People who were now experiencing something completely different than mine had at some point been on the exact same path. While I was gaining perspective, I was also gaining friendship and a support network of volunteers and patrons alike. I met David Woodruff, who I consider to be my personal mentor and gives the most moving morning. Yes, clap for David. David gives the most moving morning speech before we open the gates every Saturday, so I hope this is up to your standards. He has encouraged me in so many different areas of my life, and I'm so thankful I met him. I could go down the longest list of names of people on either side of the gate who have deeply impacted me and changed my life path, but Earl gave me a time limit, and the only reason that list exists is because of the direct nature of working and serving at Open Door. I've volunteered at several different places. A lot of times it feels very disconnected. Most food banks, at the end of the service, they say, "Great, you packed 108 meals," but that number doesn't really connect to 108 full stomachs, 108 individuals who had something that they didn't have before. Here you meet every single one of those 108 people. You share a smile, a conversation, and you meet each other face to face. When I walk around downtown Austin, I know the name of the folks on the streets. I know their shirt sizes and if they prefer sugar in their coffee, but that is another story. I've witnessed a lot of folks who have never lived in a city before move into Austin with rose-colored glasses. People who call the police on others for simply existing in spaces. I encourage everyone to consider volunteering with Open Door, not just to help others, but to be part of a community where we learn from each other and grow together and understand the exact situations that these folks go through every single day. Personally, I can be sad and angry and mad inside my own room with 4 walls and a roof, and these folks have to face that publicly. Volunteering here is not about what we can give, but the relationships we build from the understanding that we gain. As David says at the end of all of his speeches, this ministry thrives and runs on volunteers. I would love to talk to you about volunteering with Open Door, volunteering your time, your clothing, your energy, and your money. But we all share a community. We share the same spaces. We breathe the same air. Let's support each other. Thank you so much for letting me speak today. And of course, as David would say, vamonos.
Thank you so much again, Riley.